Hi, my name is Ralph Martinez. I was born and raised in Espanola Valley. I graduated from Espanola Valley High School in 1996. Immediately after high school, I started a family. And by 2001, I was addicted to cocaine and heroin. I was addicted for 11 years from 2001 to 2012. In 2006, I lost everything because of my addiction. I lost my family, I lost my home, I lost my self-identity. Ended up homeless in my community for a period of 6 years. And in 2012, I was able to plant my feet back on the ground and reestablish my life.
How did people judge you when you were using substances?
That was always a hard one. People used to judge pretty hard and pretty harsh. And you know, when you're addicted to drugs and you're living a certain lifestyle, especially when you get to the point of homelessness and really losing everything, you don't have a lot of luxuries in your life the way I don't know, normal people do. I don't know if that's the correct wording, but you know, you don't have the ability to shower and you don't have the ability to wash your clothes, and so you live a really rough life, and you can tell people's thoughts a lot of times just by the way they stare at you, by the way they look at you, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to see, knowing that you're going through a tough time, even though our choices are what get us to where we're at. But those that would judge in harsh ways would make it even harder to have the ability to even begin to think of recovery. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How would you have liked to be seen by society and your family and friends during that time?
To a point where my family just didn't even want to see me anymore, you know, for a number of different reasons. Some of the reasons because of the things that I was doing. They were disappointed, they were angry, they were frustrated, they were sad. You know, they didn't know how to deal with all of those emotions, seeing me in that place of addiction and homelessness, and that's a tough thing. And a lot of times I didn't even want to see them. You know, a lot of times I didn't even want to see them. When I was homeless here in Espanola, where I'm from, my mom would go looking for me from time to time. It got to a point in the beginning where she used to do everything she could to try to help me, but it got to a point where she just didn't want me around at all. I would take from her, I would steal from her, I would lie. But she would go looking for me from time to time, and I would see her. Sometimes my brothers, my brother or my uncles, they'd go looking for me. I'd see them and I'd run. I didn't want to engage in the conversation that they wanted to engage in, because they would ask me a lot of questions. And the hardest question that they would ask me during that time was a one-word question: why? Mm-hmm. Why? And that was the hardest question to hear, because I didn't have the answers. I had no idea why I was going down that road that I was going down, why I was living the way I was living, why I wasn't there for my kids when my kids needed me so much in their life at that time. Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of times it was those things that I couldn't do that would drive me even deeper into addiction. And it's kind of one of those things where when you get to a certain point in addiction, when you start to feel sorry for yourself, that "oh, poor me" attitude, and it drives you further into addiction, because you want to escape realities. You want to escape the reality that you're not that productive member of society, that you're letting your family down, that you're not there for your kids. And so it just really knows how to work itself. That addiction really knows how to work itself, and it's strong. It's not anything that is easy by any means. You know, somebody like me growing up in Espanola Valley, and I have a brother who's a year older than me, and we were really well known in our community, and we were both in wrestling. My brother's a 2-time state runner-up, and I did really, really good my junior high year. Decided not to join my high school year, but everybody knew us as a couple of strong guys. And I always felt like I was strong. And when I first, and I say I got addicted in 2001, but I was probably even addicted even before that, because I started experimenting with drugs since I was in high school, not knowing or realizing the effect that it was going to have in my life, right? And so I was probably even addicted before that, but it was in 2001 when I woke up one morning and I just knew. When you get to that point of addiction where you just absolutely know that you've crossed that threshold, you just know. And that is a tough thing to accept. And so, but growing up, I never thought that I would be that person, right? Like growing up in high school, people used to always say, you know, be careful, you know, with drugs, be careful with alcohol, be careful with your choices, and look at this person, or look at that person, or look at this scenario, or look at that scenario. And it was always like, that's them, that's not me, right? I'm me. I'm tougher than that. You know, you can't base what I'm gonna be or what I'm gonna do off of what path they took, and not realizing that that the drug was just really that powerful, you know. And so I always, you know, wanted society to look at me as a productive member, right? And society didn't know me the way my family knew me, and so therefore their judgment was even harsher, you know, sometimes, because I was just another statistic. I was another one of those guys, another one of those drug addicts, another one of those tecatos, another one of those homeless people, another one of those thieves, you know, whatever they portrayed me to be at that time. And so it was hard. It was hard knowing that I wasn't that person that I knew I wanted my family and society to think of me as, you know. And so it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, right. And you bring up something that's so important that, you know, a lot of people don't think that it can happen to them. You know, they think that they're, I don't know if it's the right word, kind of like how you were saying, but normal. You know, they don't think it could happen to me. But, you know, given certain circumstances, certain choices, you know, it can happen to literally anybody.
Anybody. It knows no gender. It knows no race. It knows no financial situation. It doesn't care. It could take control of anybody. You know, anybody.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone still fighting addiction, or what advice would you give to yourself back then?
The advice that I give to anybody who's struggling with addiction right now, and even what I would tell myself if I could go back in time and see myself and tell myself, is that recovery is a reality. People lose hope in the midst of addiction. They get to a point in their life where they feel like they're too far gone to even come back. And that hopelessness and that helplessness really leads people to staying on that path that they're on. And it's a tough thing. It's a really tough thing. I know for me, stepping into recovery, and I tried and failed so many times during my time of addiction. I tried and failed so many times between when I became homeless in 2006. I can still remember the first night that I spent underneath the bridge, and it was hard. And I think about that all the time. I like to go back and visit the places that I came from. For many different reasons. I think for me it's really, really healing. It helps me to remember where I was and where I don't want to go back to. It also helps me to remember who I really am in here, right? And so it's a tough thing, you know, but stepping. I lost a lot of hope along the way, especially when you try and fail. The more you try and the more you fail, the more helpless you feel. I went to rehab in San Diego between 2006 and 2012, during the time that I was homeless. When I hit that point, I felt like, oh my God, I can't believe that I got to this point. How did I get to this point? You know, I grew up without a dad. I grew up without a father. I grew up being raised by a single mom, me and my older brother. My mom had both of us when, by the time she was 18, my dad left to Florida, and she was raising us in a low-income neighborhood. And so my mom really worked hard to get us out of that environment into what she felt was a better environment where her sons stood a chance at survival, at living, at growing in the things of life. And along the way, my choices led me down my path. And so I had kids. When I ended up homeless, I had 3 kids already. And growing up, I always said, whenever I have kids, I'm not going to be that father that I didn't have. I'm going to be better than that father that I didn't have. And then I got to a point where I'm sitting underneath this bridge and I'm looking around and I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, how in the hell did I get worse than that? How did I become the worse than the person I didn't want to become? And it was such a hard thing, right? But that family connection, that love for my family, wanting to be who I knew I was in here, really kept me going. But between the years of 2006 and 2012, I went to rehab in San Diego. I went to rehab in South Florida. I went to rehab twice in Farmington. I went to rehab in Hernandez. And my last rehab in 2012 was at OI. So there are so many different trials and errors, and that's what led me to be able to figure out who I was and what was gonna work and what wasn't gonna work. But a lot of times when I would try and fail, it would just shoot me back so far, because I felt like there I was, just I couldn't, a failure, couldn't get it right. But coming into 2012, going to OI recovery, I had already been through so many trials and errors. Luckily, I was blessed with a lot of understanding of those times that I had went through. And I came to a lot of acceptances in my life. That's what my recovery was based off of. Going into my last rehab was a lot of acceptances. I accepted the fact that I was different than everybody, and that's fine, because we're all different, and that's what makes each one of us unique. And I say that because I think back even in elementary and junior high and high school, and who I was, knowing who I was on the inside, but trying to be somebody else to fit in, to be, to be popular, to be known, all these different things. And then of course, one thing led to another, and I all of a sudden became a person that I didn't even know who I was. I'd look in the mirror, I had no idea who that guy in the reflection was, I tried so hard to be somebody else for all the wrong reasons, So I came to a point in my life where I accepted that I was different than everybody else. And that was fine, because we're all different. I came to the acceptance that that life wasn't a race, and that was a big one. That was a huge one for me, because going through my homeless phase, there were a lot of different times. And I'll tell a story real quick. There was a time where I ran into a classmate of mine, and I was at Walmart. I had got to Walmart. It was probably about 6:30 in the afternoon. I was hurting. I had been malias all day long. I had been curled up in a ball in a makeshift tent in the Bosque area all day long, because I couldn't get up. The sun was starting to come down, and I remember looking up and saying, if I don't go hustle, I'm going to be hurting all night long, and I can't do that. So it took everything in me to get out of that little makeshift tent and walk to Walmart, because I lived in the Bosque area, not too far from Walmart. So when I got to Walmart, I used to wear a lot of baggy clothes. I used to wear a hoodie because I was embarrassed. Espanola is a small town. Everybody knows everybody. A lot of people knew who I was, and I was embarrassed. And so I remember walking to the front of Walmart, and I'm thinking the whole way there, what am I gonna do? 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 And when I circled the front of Walmart, a classmate of mine walked out of Walmart, him and his wife and their 2 kids. And when I seen him, I froze. I looked down. I remember pulling the hoodie over my head a little tighter, and I looked up, and they were pushing a basket full of groceries across the parking lot. He didn't notice me, but I noticed him. But I watched him, and they walked all the way to their car. His wife was putting the groceries inside of his wife was putting the kids inside of the car, and he was putting the groceries in the trunk. And I'm watching him, and I'm thinking, and I remember looking at myself, I remember looking at my hands, and mind you, I was homeless. I hadn't showered in who knows how long. There was periods where I'd go months without showering, months without brushing my teeth, months without changing my clothes. And so I looked and smelled a certain way, right? And so I remember looking at my hands, and I remember looking at myself from the feet up, and then I remember looking over at my classmate, and I remember thinking, how in the world am I ever going to catch up to that in life? How am I ever going to catch up to that in life? We had the same opportunities in life. We went to junior high together. We went to high school together. We graduated at the same time. We walked the aisle. We got a cap and gown at the same time. My choices led me over there in the Bosque area, and his choices led him right there. Like, how am I ever going to catch up to that in life? And that thought alone was mind-blowing to me. I remember seen that, and I remember feeling like I need to get high right now and escape this reality, like right now. And so for years I held on to that I'm so far behind the race of life feeling. In 2012, I came to the acceptance that life isn't a race. And even more than that, I came to the acceptance that I still had life to live. I OD'd on 2 different occasions. One of the times that the first time I OD'd in the Bosque area, and I'm happy that somebody even found me. I woke up in the back of an ambulance. The second time I OD'd at my mom's house in her kitchen. My mom found me. I've had people OD. I've been able to revive people that have overdosed. I've had people die in my arms from an overdose, and so I know the realities of it, right? And so I got to a point in my life where I was just accepted the fact that I had life to live, right? And I accepted the fact that there had to be boundaries in my life. I was always the type that if you told me that I couldn't do something, I was going to probably do it 10 times worse just to show you that I could. And in the end, I was the only one that got hurt from it, right? I had no boundaries. And so in 2012, I came to the acceptance that there had to be boundaries in life. And boundaries aren't a bad thing. They're a really good thing because they keep you in between the lines, right? I set my boundaries moving forward. I went into rehab on April the 2nd, 2012. I set my boundaries going into that rehab. I came to all these acceptances that I felt like I needed to come to. I accepted the fact that I was at where I was at in life because I made the choice, because of the choices I made. It wasn't my mom's fault. It wasn't my dad's fault for leaving me when I was a kid. It wasn't the society's fault for looking at me the way, they used to look at me. It was nobody's fault. I have free will and free choice. And so I accepted the fact that my choices led me there. And accepting that brought a lot of comfort to me, just to know that that it wasn't anybody's fault, right? And so in April 2nd of 2012, I made all these acceptances. I set up these boundaries, and I said, all right, this one day at a time thing, let's give it a try, right? And I've been living life ever since. I've been clean now for 9 years. I've been able to rebuild bridges of trust that I never thought I would be able to rebuild again, with my family, with my kids, with my brother, with society, and so if I could go back, or I tell anybody, even today, recovery is a reality. No matter where you're at in life, no matter what you've done, as long as you have breath in you, you have a chance. And so that's what I would tell myself or anybody else.
Right. And you said it so perfectly, that you still have life to live, no matter where you are. Like you absolutely, if you have breath in you, you have life to live.
Right.
That's a really beautiful line. What has been the most rewarding part of your recovery?
The most rewarding part is not only watching my kids grow, but to watch life grow around me. You get to a point when you're living like that where you can almost feel death breathing down your back. And so to be able just to see my kids and what they're doing now, and to be able to have, a beautiful family that I have right now, and to be able to give back, right? To be able to use my experiences and things that I went through in life to give back and share and change somebody else's life, right? And I think that's what we're all here to do, is look out for one another, right? And share what we've been through. We all go through things. We all go through what we got to go through to get to where we're going, right? And but in going through all of that, we learn. Everybody learns a thing or two. So to be able to accept those lessons in life that we're given, and to be able to take those lessons and share them with somebody else, and to see it even affect one person is wonderful. And so to be able to see all these things come to fruition, right? That I never thought, things that I never thought I would see come to pass, has been super rewarding.
What is your personal source of resilience?
My personal source of resilience, I give all credit to the man upstairs. I give all credit to God. I've prayed a lot, and I've asked for a lot, and it's one of those things you sometimes need to be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it not in the way you want it, but it will come. But I thank God for the understanding that He's blessed me with, to be able to see what my purpose is through all of my trials and tribulations, right? So I give all the credit to Him.
Would you change anything about your recovery story or the life you lived?
I don't think so. I wouldn't be who I am today. And I look at myself in the mirror now, and I'm able to look at myself in the eyes, and I'm able to smile, and I'm able to see things in a whole different way than what I did when I was a kid, or when I was going through my addiction period or my homeless period. And I don't know if I would have that understanding had I been. I probably have a different understanding, but I wouldn't be who I am today. And so again, we all go through what we got to go through in order to get to where we're going in life, and so I'm not ashamed of none of that.